Hello, welcome back to Buckle Up. My name's Rob Wilson. This is the Dacia Duster, and today I'm going to find out if it's the best value crossover in the UK. Okay, so let's start as we always do at the front of the vehicle, and as you can see, this is definitely more off-roader than soft-roader. A lot of crossovers in this segment don't look as mean as this. You've got some nice big LED headlights at the front, and they've got some nice daytime running lights which match the chrome details on this quite chunky grille. And further down we've got this fake brush guard thing to make it look more tough and off-roadery, like you'd see on like a Land Cruiser or something like that, and a couple of fog lights. But yeah, that's sort of it. It's purposeful, it's quite bluff, but I like it. I prefer the styling of my crossovers to look more off-roadery than just like a hatchback, which this does. So let's go and have a look at the side. Okay, so now we are at the side of the Duster, and firstly I probably should explain that this is the very top level of spec, the Extreme SE trim. So you get things like these lovely sort of anthracite 17-inch alloy wheels. You get the orange detailing, which we'll see more of on the car when we go around it. All Dusters come with this piece of plastic cladding here, which is, I guess, a faux snorkel. Gives it, again, leaning into more of that off-roady styling. And the plastic trim continues along the bottom, which means that it'll be protected if you are doing any sort of light off-roading. Also, more off-roady features. You've got a proper fixed roof bar in place, which is great. You can put a tent box on there if you wanted to. If you're going away for the weekend, one of those things, absolutely fine up there. Yeah, I guess it's definitely more sort of function over form, but I like it. I do really like how this car looks. So let's go and have a better look at the back. Okay, so now we are at the back of the Duster, and speaking of the name, it is proudly displayed here in bright orange, because that's something that you get on the Extreme SE pack. We get a sort of reflection of the front with the continuation of this sort of brush bar thing that's not, it's just plastic, but it's supposed to look more tufty off-roader thing. The rear tail lights, they're interesting because they sort of reflect the front, the grille, and also the LED light design back there. These are quite nice, and they are LED lights at the back as well. Not much else to talk about, so we'll open up the boot, where we can see 445 litres of space with the seats in place, and if you put those seats down, it's 1,478 litres, which is quite capacious really. It's a nice square shape. You don't have any sort of floor divider, it is just the floor, so there is a bit of a lip to get things over, but that's not too much of a problem. As you can see, this one's already got some straps attached to the tethering hooks at either side of the boot. You also have in here, on top of this bit here, a little 12-volt socket, so if you want to have a Hoover or whatever plugged into the back, you can easily do that there. Under the boot floor, there really isn't anything, because that's where the LPG tank would go if you had one with LPG, which you can't in this country. So we'll gloss over that. All of your like kits, your first aid kit and everything is sort of fastened away in here, and your spare tyre stuff all just sits on that side. But yeah, that's the boot. So now let's go and find out if the back seats are as practical. Right, so now I'm in the back of the Duster. This seat is set up in my driver's position. For reference, I am 6'2" tall, and my knees are just sort of gently brushing against the back of the seat, which is pretty standard for me in most cars of this type. The seats are fixed nice and high, so I can get my shoes right underneath the front seat, which is very good. You do have a small sort of transmission tunnel bit here, but it's not particularly high. It is quite wide though, so if you were sat in this middle seat, your outer passengers might have to sit a bit awkwardly for you to get your shoes either side of it. While we're talking about the middle seat, the seatbelt situation for it, it's fixed right at the back here, so you have to pull it over and do the sort of 2 seat belts, which is a bit annoying. It's not the best, but I feel like if you were sat in this middle seat and had 2 outer passengers, you would be cramped. I wouldn't recommend it for long journeys, but I would say it is doable. Things I do like is headroom. I've got some, which is rare in cars. I don't generally have a lot of headroom, but in here I can sit up straight and I'm absolutely fine. In terms of creature comforts, there aren't too many things back here. You do have 2 USBs down in the middle, so if you want to plug your phone in, you can. You have some nice seat back pockets, which are this sort of not quite leather material. You've got speakers in the doors, electric windows, you've got ISOFIX on the outer seats, and that's about it. But this is a very, very cheap car comparatively, so I can forgive those things. And to be honest, the materials that are used, this sort of faux leather and the cloth inserts, contrasted by this orange stitching, it's all very nice. It's very pleasant. It's all well put together. It doesn't feel flimsy. Everything, you know, it's sturdy. It's quite comfortable. I'm very impressed. Hopefully that continues in the front. So now we're in the front of the Duster, and I'm pleased to say that there is a continuation of good things up here. You have some nice squishy armrests with some orange stitching on it. You've got orange detailing on the grab handles up here. You have orange accents on the air vents. It's actually surprisingly premium. You've got Duster embossed into your not leather part of your seats. It does feel surprisingly upmarket. You've got some sort of not brushed aluminium here. You've got actual proper knurling, I guess you could call it, on top of the gear stick and on the actual physical climate controls, which are all down here. That is lovely. You've got fan speed, temperature and direction, and that's all controlled through these lovely damped dials, which have screens or something in the middle of them, so it's a bit like an Audi, if you remember the Audi TT had those. And this is pittance compared to one of them. You've got proper analog dials, you've got a nice round steering wheel that's finished in either leather or plasticky leather. I can't quite decide what it is, but it feels nice. Standard indicator wipers. You do have, this is where you can pick up on some places where they've saved a bit of money. The volume controls for the stereo are off a 2000s Renault. Not ideal placement for them, but they are there behind the steering wheel. You have cruise control on this side. You've got voice commands on the other side. You have some buttons down here for changing the mirror position, turning on and off the blind spot monitoring, because this car comes with that, which is crazy because of how much it costs. You've got some nice toggle switches to use alongside the central infotainment screen. You do have full 360-degree cameras on this top spec Duster, which again is pretty mental considering the price of this car. And they're lovely little toggle switches that you can use. It's it's great. It's like a mini, but a Dacia. In terms of practical elements, you have sort of storage down here with I wouldn't call that a cup holder. I'd say that was more for chewing gum or something down there. You've got 2 USBs again, same as the back, and you also get a 12-volt socket up here. You've got 2 proper cup holders here, bit of storage under the armrest here, which is where the sunglasses are currently being kept. You've got a proper manual handbrake. Your door bins are nice and big. You can fit a big bottle of water in them. Your glove box is a decent size and has enough room for the manual and various different bits in there. So yeah, that's the front seat. It's perfectly acceptable. There isn't really anything that I'm wanting for up here. This one even has heated seats, which are controlled by a button on the actual seats themselves. And you get like Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, so you don't need a sat-nav built in. It's all just done through your phone. There's not much you can sort of talk about in here without praising it massively. And then you have to think about the price, and it's just like, how do they do it? How do they do it? I don't know. Anyway, let's go and drive it, and hopefully it won't let me down there either. Right, okay, so out on the open road in the Dacia Duster Extreme SE. And I'm happy to report that it doesn't disappoint. It feels very much like a car, and that's all you can expect really at this price point. It is so inexpensive compared to its rivals that it actually does sort of beg a belief. On the road, this exact car in this exact specification, £18,690, which, if you haven't looked at new car prices for a while, might seem expensive, but you're basically looking at a Ford Fiesta or a quite low-spec Volkswagen Polo or a Vauxhall Corsa for this sort of money. But we're not in one of those cars. We're in a full crossover with a big clear view ahead of you. I'm sat high up in the car. I've got much more space. I've got a big boot. How did they do this? The interior is actually really quite nice. I don't understand where they saved the money, because the engine is good as well. It's not especially powerful, just 90 horsepower, but it's not like, I don't feel like it's wanting for any more. It's pokey enough. You can put your foot down in most gears and it will go. 0 to 60, not that it's particularly relevant, is a little slow, 13.2 seconds, top speed 103 miles an hour, but it's got quite a reasonable amount of torque, 118 pounds-feet. Again, these sort of things aren't really relevant in this car, but it's obviously, it's fast enough. It doesn't feel too slow for the roads, and that's all it needs to be at this price point. It doesn't need to wow me, it just needs to satisfy me, which it does perfectly well. In terms of the actual driving experience, all of the controls super light. It's very similar in feel to the Dacia Jogger that we drove collectively as a group not that long ago. So that's quite fresh in my mind, and it really does feel very similar. Obviously you sat a lot higher up in the Duster, but steering is light, relatively precise, if not full of feel. Gear change again, absolutely fine. It's very light to use. It's not rewarding, but it doesn't need to be. It's a small crossover and it costs very little money, so I would be amazed if it felt anything other than absolutely fine, which is what it does. In terms of economy, it's actually very good. The owner of this one has only bought it relatively recently, and it's done about 1,400 miles. And on the trip computer, he's getting 45 miles to the gallon over those first 1,400 miles, which is very respectable, especially considering it's a new engine and won't really have been run in yet. So in theory, that should improve with the more miles that it gets on it. When you're on some country roads that are a bit more twisty, as I am now, the steering is absolutely as much as it needs to be, as in when I turn the wheel it goes in the direction that I want it to. Again, not really that sort of engaging or full of feel, but it doesn't matter. It just feels perfectly stable, pleasant, easy. It's very easy to use and operate this car. I'm trying to look for downsides because I don't want to sound too positive about the car, but it is difficult when it's as good as it is for the price that it is. One thing I have noticed is there's no dead pedal. There's nowhere for me to put my left foot when I'm not changing gear. So if I was on a long motorway cruise, that could become irritating, but not really. So yeah, it's pretty good really. It rides quite well as well, really. It's slightly jiggly around town, but there isn't much in this class that wouldn't be, because it is, after all, quite high riding, and therefore, in order to stop it rolling about, the suspension does need to be slightly firmer, but it's not uncomfortable, that's for certain. I'm just at a junction now, so I'm just trying out the visibility, and it's actually very good. There's a nice big sort of glass house all around. You've got a big rear window which you can see perfectly well out of from the rear view mirror. The side mirrors are nice and big, get a good view behind you, and even like when you look over your shoulder if you're at a junction, because they've got those third set of windows at the back and they are quite a good shape, you don't even feel like that would be a problem if you were, say, I don't know, reverse parking or entering a motorway on the wrong side of the road, as in if you were in France, for example, if you're taking your car into Europe and you were joining the motorway from the wrong side for the steering wheel, that would be very useful. And obviously you can do those sort of things in this car because it's got the space, it's got roof bars if you want to pack more stuff. Under hard acceleration, the engine can be a little bit intrusive, but it's not like loud. It doesn't vibrate into the cabin. And once you're sort of at cruising speed, you can't even tell it's there really. It's not intrusive at all. So yeah, there you go then. That is a very quick drive in the new Dacia Duster. So let's pull over and I'll talk you through some of my thoughts and a conclusion. Okay, so there you go, the Dacia Duster Extreme SE. Is it the best value crossover on sale in the UK today? Well, I think you probably knew at the beginning of the video that the answer to that question is, of course, yes, because it is the cheapest crossover on sale in the UK. Its only real competitor was the Suzuki Jimny, but you can't really get them anymore unless you go for a commercial one, and the waiting list is insane. But just more generally, as a car, I really can't find all that much wrong with it when you consider how little it costs. So on that basis, I have to give it a thorough recommendation. So there you go. Thank you very much for watching. It's got incredibly windy now, so if you've enjoyed the video, give it a like, comment down below if you've got something to say, and most importantly, subscribe if you're new, and then you can see lots more videos like this. If you want to follow us in other fashions, you can do so in the description below with our links to social media. And if you want to support the channel, you can do it in one of three ways. Firstly, by becoming a member on YouTube. Secondly, by joining our Patreon. And thirdly, you can buy some lovely, lovely merch, which I am not sporting at the minute, although I do have a t-shirt underneath this, but it is starting to rain and it's quite cold now, so I'm not going to show you. So you can see us next time. Goodbye.